What's up, guys? Pastor Josh here. Hope you're doing well today. Just wanted to come with you and chat for just a few minutes. So, hopefully, most of you saw our Facebook Live last week, our wing challenge. Shout out Nick Lamb for winning the challenge and completing it the quickest. Also, Kevin and Ben for helping us out. It was an awesome time. Thursday was terrible. Ultimately, it wasn't really a good idea, but we enjoyed it. My offer still stands. If you're able to do it by next Wednesday, if you can eat 8 of the wings in 10 minutes, I'll give you $50. Just got to video yourself doing it and tag us in it. Just want to chat with you for just a few minutes tonight. I'm praying that we're just a few weeks away from seeing everybody, but until that happens, we want to do what we can to connect with you. But something that I've been thinking about recently is we keep hearing people talk about this normal. What is normal going to look like? When is normal going to take place? That they're ready to get back to a sense of normalcy. Just to be honest, I've been saying the same thing. But I want you to think about this because this is what I've been thinking about in my own life. What is the new normal going to look like? Obviously, we're going to have to be willing to adapt to whatever that might be for the foreseeable future. So whatever that might be, we're going to have to be able to adapt to whatever the new normal is. And I've started thinking about this time. What if God is using this time to create a new normal for us? Ultimately, what do you think God wants for you? He wants you to be totally dependent upon Him. And for most of us, those of us that have desired to grow closer to Him, those of us that have desired to get closer to Him during this entire 6 or 7 week process, we've become more dependent upon God because we've just been playing this huge waiting game. Because the truth is that we were so accustomed to being able to do what we want, when we want, go where we want to go, see who we want to see. But that has drastically changed over the last few weeks. And now we've been forced into, like I said, this waiting game. We're waiting on things to open up, waiting on people to recover, waiting on things to change back to whatever normal used to be so that we can resume what life used to look like. But what I felt like God spoke to me was that a waiting season doesn't have to be a wasted season. Let me say that one more time. A waiting season doesn't have to be a wasted season. In fact, what looks like a season of waiting could be a season of opportunity. And I believe that's exactly what God wants to speak to us during this time of waiting. We can look at it as it's one long waiting game, and we've got to wait for all of this to end, and we've got to wait for everything to resume the way it used to be. Or we can look at it as an opportunity, like I've spoken about the last few times I've done a video for you. We can look at it as an opportunity to succeed and to grow and to excel in our relationship with God. And when I speak about seasons of waiting and looking at what waiting looks like, I'm reminded of Joseph. And many of you are familiar with Joseph back in Genesis 37, and his story spans for about 13 chapters up to Genesis 50. But you know the story of Joseph. Joseph was pretty much hated by his brothers that eventually betrayed him and sold him into slavery. He was bought by a man named Potiphar. And then not too long after that, Potiphar's wife accused him of coming after her. And then he was ultimately thrown in prison. So if anybody knows what waiting looks like, I believe it's Joseph. And Joseph had to become totally dependent upon God, even through that trial period of whatever it was going to look like. He had no idea what was going on. He had no idea how long it was going to last. But he knew the promises that God had given him. He knew the dreams that God had given him. And he knew what God had planned for his life. So even though it looked like he was waiting for a long time, even though it looked like he was struggling through a lot of but it looked like he was struggling with a lot of phases of life and not sure what he was going to do and not sure how he was going to make it, he had to trust God in these waiting seasons. So regardless of what a new normal might look like, or I guess the better question pertaining to what we're talking about tonight is when that might actually take place. The question tonight that I want us to focus on is, can you be faithful in the waiting season? Are you willing to do whatever it takes to ensure that your relationship with Christ constantly grows? Because when I look at the story of Joseph and I try to even remotely compare it to what we're experiencing now, we've been going through this for about 6 weeks. Joseph experienced all of these things over a course of about 13 years. And he was still faithful and still remained faithful to God and still chose to follow God and chose to seek God despite his circumstances, despite what he was going through, and despite everything that he experienced. Regardless of how long it took, he was willing to wait on the promises and willing to wait on God to fulfill those promises. So the question is can we be faithful in the waiting seasons? Can we trust God in the waiting seasons, regardless of when it might be that we get back to any kind of normalcy in life, regardless of what we may have missed out on, regardless of what the future may look like or what a new normal might actually look like? Can we be faithful in these seasons? Can we trust God to fulfill the promises that he's given us? And I believe there are a few things that you can do even where you're at right now, regardless of the fact that we're not meeting on a regular basis, regardless of you're not being able to see everybody that you would normally see on a Wednesday or Sunday. I believe that where you're at right now, wherever you are in your relationship with God, wherever your spiritual location is, and wherever your physical location is, I believe there are things that you can do right now to ensure that this waiting season doesn't have to be a wasted season. And the first thing that I would encourage you to do is just to get a head start. You have time, you have plenty of downtime, plenty of time that you can just make the most of your opportunities. I believe that you can really genuinely seek God in the times where you're waiting just as much as you can when you find yourself in a church service on Sunday morning or Wednesday night, wherever it might be. So I believe that you can get a head start. The second thing that I believe you can do is you can maximize your opportunities. You have great opportunities to grow in your faith. You have great opportunities to reach out to people, to grow collectively. Obviously, we're using Zoom now. We're using all these different platforms. So you have ways to access your friends and ways to access me and Taylor and all of our pastoral staff and anybody that you need to talk to, so you can maximize your opportunities. And the third thing is you just got to be the best you that you can be. Obviously, you know your identity and where it's found, that our identity is alone found in God, and that He alone calls us who we are and says what we are. So I want to encourage you for those three things. I want you to get a head start. I want you to maximize your opportunities. And then I want you to be the best person that you can be. Lastly, I just want to encourage you just for a second, and let you know how cherished and loved you are, not just by God, but by us, and let you know how much we do miss you. And we can't wait to see you, can't wait for things to get back to where they used to be. But as we find ourselves waiting for the new normal or whatever it might look like or whenever it might happen, I believe that God is calling all of us to more faithfulness. I believe that God is calling us to a more sincere lifestyle of faithfulness in everything that we do in seeking after Him. So don't let this season of waiting be a wasted season. Let it be a season where you genuinely seek after God and you genuinely try to seek after the promises that He's given you. We love you guys. We're praying for you. If you need us, we're always here. My cell phone number is 423-457-4673. Please feel free to reach out to me anytime you need us. Love you guys.